Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Amari's Revenge. The goddess next door is confronted by a Nubian queen out for revenge at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in this inaugural Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Amari's Revenge in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick is looking to get into the comic book business. Now, recently, former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick made a lot of waves in the tech world when he announced his new business venture, Lumi, was going to start with $4 million in seed funding it got from a venture capitalist group led by 776. Now, what Colin Kaepernick is proposing for the comic book industry is to use AI to allegedly streamline the comic book creative process for comics and manga and allow storytellers to tell stories and avoid many of the barriers that prevent many comic creators like myself from being able to enter the publishing world on a consistent basis. Now, what Colin Kaepernick is proposing with his AI-based Lumi comic book publishing is to create a platform where creators will be able to get a lot more creative control because they will use AI to flesh out their stories, and they will be able to, as they create their stories, be able to maintain all of their rights, and as they maintain all of their rights, they won't have to work with traditional comic book companies who basically put more creators on a work for hire basis. So what Colin Kaepernick is trying to propose with this Lumi company is a platform that he believes will streamline the publishing process. However, as someone who has worked in the publishing industry for over a decade and been a writer for over 15 years and already knows the traditional publishing business, when I listen to all of the talking points regarding Colin Kaepernick and this AI platform, it looks to be just as ridiculous as Colin Kaepernick's proposal to try to go out and take that knee to try to get that trade when he was on the San Francisco 49ers. Now, when Colin Kaepernick was on the San Francisco 49ers, he began using a whole plan to try to use identity politics by taking a knee before the playing of the national anthem in an effort to try to get a trade to another team. However, many people saw through Colin Kaepernick's whole ploy to try to get traded to a better team, and instead of him getting traded to a better team, what happened was Colin Kaepernick basically wound up in limbo. His contract wound up getting cut, and he wound up wandering in limbo until he decided to finally return and decided to come out here with this whole AI platform of Lumi. And when I listen to this whole plan, this whole business plan is completely fundamentally flawed, and basically it's looking to me that Colin Kaepernick is getting played once more like he tried to make the play for the trade, because when I listen to the amount of capital that these venture capitalists are proposing for this venture, this $4 million ain't gonna be enough to be able to launch a AI-based comic publishing company. No, $4 million ain't gonna be enough to be able to allow this venture to even get off the ground, because in the publishing world, where it's very highly competitive, this amount of money will basically run out in less than a year. So while I see a lot of comic artists and comic writers getting upset, I really don't see anything to get upset about regarding Colin Kaepernick and his AI comic company, because I believe this AI comic company will basically go out of business before it even gets started. Now, when it comes to comics, what makes comics a unique business is that when it comes to comics, just like film, it's a people business. And as a people business, you need people there in order to create the product. Whenever you're making something like film or a comic, it's a team-based process, and that's something I know from working with multiple comic artists on things like covers for my SJS Direct publications, or when I was working on my 2 comics that I just have done, Esteem, No Good Deed, and John Haynes at Death's Door. I know for a fact that it's a collaborative process, and yes, it is an expensive process because artists don't work for free. You have to pay artists per page, and while you have to pay them per page, you are getting something in that collaborative process. You are getting the experience of that artist, and that has higher value than what you would get from an AI program, which can only produce what you put in. But when you work with an artist, you get perspective from another person, and it's that perspective from another person that can help you make your story that much better. That's something I've learned working with comic artists. Yes, I can possibly write a scene a certain way, but that artist can go out here and interpret that scene and bring it to life. And sometimes when they bring it to life, they can put perspective on certain frames of certain shots. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of write my scripts kind of open, because I really like working with artists and seeing what they will be able to do. I don't like to really be too controlling in a script, like where I'm telling him, oh, I need this shot to be tight, or I need this shot to be medium, or I need this shot to be close up. I feel that's restraining the artist, and I like to have that open space where we can both come and talk together and really talk about a scene sometimes if we have to. I mean, that's something I've done with artists in the past. And while a lot of people think you can just go out here and try to cut the cost with AI, what you do is cut out the creative process, because yeah, I can write a scene a certain way as a writer, but the artist coming in, they can come in and say, hey, maybe we should try this scene from a different shot, and that can help really make the story that much better. And a lot of people don't really understand the importance of the creative process, because the creative process, again, is not something done by just one individual program. No, it's done by a group of people. And sometimes what you write in a script is not what comes to the page when you're doing the comic. And that whole process is not something that I believe can be eliminated with AI, because AI really cannot tell you about things like perspective, can't really give you a different viewpoint or a second set of eyes. AI is a computer program, and a computer program that is right now fundamentally flawed, because I was recently watching a Clownfish TV video where they were talking about how AI was costing bigger companies like Google a bunch of money. And as they were talking about how AI was costing Google a bunch of money because the AI basically was not steering people to websites, because Google made most of its money by people typing in the search, and then the websites basically paying them money because they were getting the traffic there. But since the traffic wasn't going there, the Google was losing money. So, and I don't think AI-based comic books will make money in the long term. No, I believe AI-based comics would basically further accelerate the already declining comic book industry, because right now the comic book industry is at a point where it is on the near brink of collapse. We just recently had a 73% drop in sales, and with that 73% drop in sales due to bad content, because these days editorial at the two big companies, Marvel and DC, what they're doing is hiring a bunch of inexperienced writers, inexperienced artists, and these people, because of their lack of experience and the editorial that has no real understanding of how publishing works, this is the reason why the comic book industry is in dire straits right now, because the content currently being produced is not being produced by people who have, one, life experience, and two, don't really know much about craft. This is why the comic book industry right now is struggling, and that would be exacerbated by AI-based comics, because an AI-based content basically is content that's going to be created by artificial intelligence. And again, AI doesn't create anything on its own. No, what it does is aggregate all of the images it sees online to try to create an image based on that aggregation of images that it's seen. And that basically is going to make this company possibly on the road to a lawsuit as related to copyrights and copyright violation. So when I look at this venture that Colin Kaepernick is proposing as related to his Lumi comic book company, I see them going out very quickly. And I see them going out very quickly because basically the whole concept of AI-based comics that so-called creators own really aren't something that they own. And again, the federal government has already stated that AI-based content can't be copyrighted. And if the images start to look like somebody else's images, like these legendary artists, this is a lawsuit waiting to happen. So when I look at this whole Colin Kaepernick AI comic company, it's looking just like another one of Colin Kaepernick's hustles, like the one he tried to run to try to get himself traded to another team after he saw the San Francisco 49ers go into a state of decline. And like that whole plan that he schemed to do, this one is destined to fail and is looking to me like a company that basically is something venture capitalists basically threw together to take a loss. Because why would you go out here and open up a company that basically is going to be creating content in a dying industry where there are less than basically 300 comic shops to distribute these comics? I mean, why would you go out here and open up this kind of venture with such little money? Critical question I'd like to ask Colin Kaepernick, because as someone who has been in the publishing industry and has run his own company, I can tell you making comics ain't cheap. No, making comics ain't cheap, because the budget for a comic is very expensive. I mean, the budget for a run of comics basically can cost you some money, especially if you're doing graphic novels, because even if you're cutting the cost with the artist, you still got to pay for writing, which is about $110 to $50 a page. And again, this is going to eat up your revenue, because you're making content. But in the publishing world, and I'm not just talking about the comic book world, 90% of all books fail, and bringing artificially generated comics to an industry where it's already 90% of the books fail with a $4 million venture capital investment. This basically, when you do the math on it, basically is a disaster. And it's a disaster. And I look at a lot of people in the comic book world, they're feeling betrayed, they're getting upset. But when I look at the big picture of Lumi, I see the light going out on Lumi before this company even gets started. And I see the light going out on Lumi because while people might be curious about AI comics in the beginning, when they start to see that these images, again, are aggregated and really not looking that good, because the whole thing with comics is you need that artist to work with you towards creating shots that can transition from panel to panel to keep the reader's eyes moving, and that's something that only a person can do. A computer really cannot really create content like that. You really do need to work with someone else, because when working with artists like Bill Walker and Antonio Balduri and Mike Williams and many others, I mean, I've learned that yeah, you got to work with your artist, and sometimes you have to trust what they're doing, because yeah, you may write a scene a certain way and the AI may see it that one way, but you really need that second perspective of that artist. And I really appreciate the talent that I've worked with, because they have taken my stories and made them a lot better with the way that they, again, can interpret the pictures. And again, a computer can't really interpret a picture, can't really, again, show you perspective on things. Moreover, it can't really give you that human touch that allows us to connect with art, because art is not just about going out and just having a picture as related to a sequence in a page. No, it's about that human touch. Because I know from picking up real comics, when you hold a comic book in your hand, it's a different experience than looking at it on the screen. I mean, when I go out and start picking up comics in my hand and I'm looking at those comics, it's a completely different experience. It connects me to the artist, and the spirit of the artist basically is on that page as I see it. So when I look at this whole AI scheme, I see it for just another one of Colin Kaepernick's scams, another one of his scams to try to generate controversy for himself. I mean, he wants to go out here and generate some controversy and get people talking about him, because when you look at the nuts and bolts of this business plan from a publisher's perspective, there's no way that this is viable, because if a guy like Young Ripper 5'9" basically he has raised again $2 to $3 million for his Rippaverse comics, and that was just for one or two comics. And again, when guys do this, they have to pay artists, they have to pay letterers, they have to pay for warehousing, they have to pay for shipping, and those costs add up. And again, a $4 million investment basically would bust this guy in less than a year to 2 years. So a lot of artists, they're getting upset. But when you start looking at the numbers from a business perspective, you can just see that Colin Kaepernick basically is looking to just, again, get his money from these venture capitalists, look to get his money from venture capitalists and get a payday for himself. And the venture capitalists themselves are looking for a tax loss with this whole Lumi company, which basically, again, is not going to do anything to streamline the creative process as related to comics or manga. No, not going to streamline any sort of process, because comics and manga, they are a medium that is about people, and a comic is only as good as the people who work on it together. I know this from experience doing the two comics I've done, Esteem, No Good Deed, and John Haynes at Death's Door. I know from experience that comics basically are a people process, and while I may write a script, I do need that artist. Again, I'm going to repeat it many times because I want you to understand that the artist, again, they create the pictures, and they can come in and see a story a different way. Moreover, it's the letterer who comes in, and I learned that from working on Esteem, No Good Deed, and John Haynes at Death's Door. The letterer comes in and basically, again, allows you to see the action on the page and watch it pace all along. And you need all the people together to make that process work. You need all the people there, and no computer can go out here and make comics, because while these guys want to say, oh, people have faced those high barriers, but the whole thing is you get what you pay for. I know I got what I paid for working with quality artists. When I work with quality artists, again, I get what I pay for, and it's those artists, again, that, yes, it may cost me some money in the short term, but what happens is it's my brand and reputation in the long term that will get built up if I go out here and present quality work. I mean, there may be those barriers in the publishing world for people, but the whole thing is, as people overcome those barriers, eventually they wind up creating quality work. And again, I would rather read a comic made by a person than one made by AI, because AI is not going to make a story that connects me with people. It's going to be art. It's going to be completely fake. It's not going to have anything but aggregated images based on other people's work. And again, federal law already says that AI images are not copyrightable. So this company, it's not something that has me quaking in my boots, because this stuff is not copyrightable. And since you can't own any rights to an AI image, this company basically is just a dummy corporation made up by a dummy who can't see that he's basically a pawn in the game. A pawn in the game where Colin Kaepernick basically is getting played once more, because the whole thing is AI-based comics just ain't a business that, again, is a viable one. And sadly, Colin Kaepernick, again, while he's out here making a lot of noise, he shows us he hasn't learned anything since he tried to push his social justice agenda in the NFL. And like he got in the NFL, played by those NFL owners who left him ass out and broke. He is about to be left ass out and broke once more because he just doesn't know the business of publishing and doesn't know how he basically just got himself played for yet another jive hustle that's not going to turn into a payday that's going to benefit him. Now, if you want to pick up my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, you can find that comic in paperback on Lulu.com, or you can pick up a digital copy on Kindle by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to check out my first digital comic, Esteem, No Good Deed, you can find that comic on Kindle for 99 cents, or in the back of the paperback version of the Esteem series story, Esteem Blast from the Past. And if you want to check out the books of the SJS Direct Universe, you can find all of the books of the SJS Direct Universe in paperback and Kindle format on Amazon.com and other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to help me be able to make more videos or help pay for the covers for the next series of SJS Direct Universe books, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteem Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Illuminati. The man who rules the world takes on the head of the global elite in this all-new action-packed John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes, Illuminati in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.